Dobrý den, vítám vás
Good afternoon.
velkého kongresového
Let me welcome you
setkání, které zde bylo
to the last part of our Congress meetings, which have been happening since Friday. And I would like to introduce you to Dr. Rainer Picha from Austria.
Okay, prosím, mluvme.
And I would like to introduce you to our precious guest, Dr. Rainer Picha from Austria.
Yes. Již je to v pořádku?
I think it's already all right. Can you hear me? So now let me introduce you to my precious guest, Dr. Rainer Picha from Austria, who is an important representative of TCIM.
A který
and who in his life journey has made a great progress to the area of TCIM, especially in Ayurvedic healing system. And I am really interested to know his experience concerning a man who was born in Austria. So how an Austrian gentleman can get acquainted with Indian system, what kind of benefits they bring to his life, and how is also involved in education and training of his followers. And now over to Dr. Picha.
Thank you, Thomas Pfeiffer, for inviting me to this nice assembly of the local people of Czech Republic. Yes, as you introduced, I'm a medical doctor. I'm a cardiologist. I have been working in a big state hospital in Austria for over 12 years as an invasive cardiologist. Means I was probing into the coronary arteries with a catheter. I was head of intensive care unit. And so I know modern medicine very well from its top level. The only thing that was kind of bothering me over time was that cardiovascular disease, that means heart attack and stroke, can be prevented by lifestyle changes. Since 20 years, through big studies, inter-heart studies and others, we know that heart attack and stroke can be prevented through lifestyle changes, and that means 80% of all heart attack and stroke could be prevented just by handling the risk factors through lifestyle, which is hypertension, overweight, not exercising enough, wrong diet, drinking alcohol, smoking, high cholesterol, and most of all what is now called in medicine, the cause of the causes, which is chronic stress. We're all living under chronic stress, or most of us, and that is triggering all the other risk factors that I just mentioned. So even though we know all of this, and even the WHO is stating recently that 50% of all diseases, doesn't matter heart disease or cancer or any disease, 50% of all diseases are coming from wrong diet, which is also part of lifestyle. And then I told myself, I have to probe into coronary arteries and deblocking blocked or partially blocked arteries. And it's a kind of puzzle work, and people come after 3 months again with the same problem, sometimes after 1 year. There is success, and it's great, and I totally appreciate modern medicine. But much more effective would be to prevent all of this by educating the younger people or those who have not yet this disease to handle all of these risk factors. And it's possible through lifestyle. And I looked into all possible systems, and there is the great advantage of traditional systems that have age-old, often 1,000 years old experience with proper lifestyle, which we have forgotten. Maybe our grandmothers still did, to eat at the right time, to eat only when you're hungry and not in between, and to sleep properly. They are all simple things, but each of those little things, they can change the destiny of a disease. And then I discovered Ayurveda as a simple to learn system of medicine that is one of the oldest in the world. And so I started to look into that. And I learned more and more. It's Ayurveda means Ayu is life, and Veda means knowledge. So it's the knowledge of life. It's not just the knowledge of medicine or the knowledge of proper diet. It's everything. It's the distant environment, the cosmic influence, the influence of a building, the influence of our clothes, the influence of the air we breathe, the influence of your family, the influence of your nation, of your friends with whom you work and deal, and the food and everything. So this is a huge area, and but through a special system of Vata, Pitta, Kapha, the three main principles of energy in the body, and with this is easy to work. Now, being here, where we talk about TCIM, traditional, complementary, and integrative medicines, I feel that all of these sciences, they're very similar. They have a lot of overlap. In Chinese medicine, maybe called yin, yang, and qi, which is the same like Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and so there's not so much difference. It's just the terminology. So I started more and more in this and got educated, and now since 30 years, I've quit my job in the hospital, and I'm full-time involved in helping my patients through an Ayurvedic system, and also have two foundations. It's in the Netherlands, but it's an international foundation that teaches courses in various parts of the world, and also we have a platform for health professionals who have taken training with us, and so we provide them with more knowledge and news magazines and so forth. And so I'm very happy now that I have been invited here, and I have learned so many, the last 2-3 days, so many experts, 20, 30, 40 experts who in their own right are doing so much, and especially Thomas Pfeiffer. It's quite amazing for me what is happening. And I think all of this work that we are doing together creates a momentum, because the population is more and more wishing to have these alternative approaches. People don't want to take medicines with side effects. In case it's necessary, it's fine, but if there are alternative approaches that doesn't have the hazards of modern medicine, of surgery, and side effects of modern medicine, then I think everyone is wishing this, and this is the case in US and in whole of Europe. So this is, I think, is the future, also not to abandon or to kind of discredit it, modern medicine, but to use the strengths of both systems. And maybe one word to Ayurveda. I explained the word Ayurveda, the knowledge of life, but the word for health in Ayurveda is called svasthya, which is again two parts, sva and sta. Sva means the self, our soul, our self, our atma, they call it, however you call it, your inner intelligence, your real self, your own consciousness, we can say. And sta means established. So someone who is healthy is established in himself, which means established, he knows his inner intelligence. Our inner intelligence, our consciousness, is the only thing in our body that belongs to us that is always perfectly healthy. It can never be destroyed. It was never created. It was always there. And it's the immortal part in our physiology. It will not die when the body ceases. It will prevail. And it unites with the cosmic consciousness. And so that we have to uphold, and we can always dive into that. And that can be done through all type of consciousness-based technologies. And in what I'm taught, my teacher was Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He made Ayurveda again more complete, because even in India, it's now often used like modern medicine. You have a disease and you give that herb. You have high blood pressure, take this herb. You have headache, you take this herb. You have arthritis, you take this herb. It's fine, but Ayurveda is much more than that. And even the plant have an intelligence. And by appreciating that intelligence, it vibrates with our own intelligence. On that very subtle level, it also works. And it needs a physician that appreciates that. And it needs the patient, the client who appreciates that. And meditation techniques to dive deep within yourself, experience your own self, which is pure silence and pure awareness, pure full awakeness at the same time. So these are a few words to your question, Thomas. I don't know if I should go on from here. I just try to answer your question why I shifted as a cardiologist with a nice position and, of course, good income and everything, and they're proud and of my family. They were a little bit not so happy in the beginning that I quit even my job. But I can only say the greatest joy and the greatest fulfillment and the greatest pay is to see patients being happy, and people can be self-responsible by adopting these lifestyle changes without needing medicines or surgery or dangerous interventions. So I'm not sure if I should continue, Thomas. Maybe I should.
I apologize because now I wanted to welcome some more guests to this lecture, Dr. Bhashwati Bhattacharya and Mr. Amajit S. Bamra from Great Britain. Bhashwati works in the USA in Cornell Medical College, and Amajit S. Bamra works in the field of Ayurveda in APPG on Indian Sciences at the UK Parliament, and he's also involved in many other tasks and roles. So here you can see how our destiny, we have two more guests here.
You have handset, yes. Badan.
So you already have your handsets.
Oh. Yeah. Please.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Good work. Then I would. Yeah. Okay. Please, Badan. Go. Thank you.
So I'm returning to my place. I apologize. I would like to say that it's beautiful to see the lineage, when the EVM knowledge is accompanied with everything which is brought by traditional medicines, gifts of traditional medicines. And you can say that not always radical interventions are needed. And our task is to find the same as is hidden in the word evidence-based. And this is to work on research, studies, which will be bringing a larger security into the space of healthcare. And now I would like to ask how Rainer sees the possible progress in the integration of TCIM in traditional healthcare systems. Are you more of an optimist or a pessimist?
I'm clearly an optimist. And I already see the changes. When I started to study Ayurveda 30 years ago, the word wasn't even known what it is. It was either no idea or maybe something mystical from the East, maybe some religion, absolutely no idea. Meditation was considered, if you would meditate, that you may be on drugs or you do some crazy things, was more negative. And this is just a few examples. And now Ayurveda is a common word everyone understands and knows basically. And meditation is considered to be very positive. When you have an interview at a new position, you're not put into a kind of being a drug-consuming person, but someone who is responsible for yourself and who takes care of stress and manages your stress. So these things have changed. And also some of the systems that we are doing in traditional medicine, like in Ayurveda, I was learning 30 years ago from these experts in India that 80% of all diseases coming from the gut, from the large intestine. And that sounded even to me very strange. And I discussed with my colleagues, gastroenterologists, and they found this is just maybe a wrong, simple understanding from the past. They had the feeling, everything from the gut is basically nonsense. Now, since a few years, the discovery and the research on the human microbiome, which is the sum total of all the bacteria and viruses living in our large intestines, they interfere with a nervous system called the small nervous system in the gut, and that speaks to our brain. And also 80% of all immune cells are in the inner lining of the large intestine. And there's a huge speaking to each other. And now there is not a month passing by where not a new disease is connected with the microbiome. So treating the microbiome, and this is treated by proper diet and proper breaks in between, proper digestion and so forth. I mean, this is in all detail, there is knowledge when and what to eat and how much and so forth. And so this, we know from Ayurveda now, is supported by modern medicine. And like this, there are hundreds of examples. When I teach in the university, in our universities, it's a topic that is called Modern Medicine Discovers the Age-Old Principles of Ayurveda. And you can speak for 1 week, 8 hours a day, and 20, 30 topics like this. Like nasya, probing some oil into the nose, is said in Ayurveda to be the interface to the brain, the gateway to the brain. It sounded also very strange that you can put something in the nose and you nourish the brain or you purify the brain. But the reality is there is now an interface discovered by modern medicine. It goes through where the olfactory nerve, the nerve for smelling, they go through the skull in the brain. It's many small holes, and along with that there are lymph vessels. And through that there's an exchange between the cerebrospinal fluid and the nose. And many things like this. In the last few days I gave a talk here mentioning the sunrise, which is worshipped in India. It sounds like a religion, but it's one of the best medicines in Ayurveda to observe the morning sunrise. And here again, we learn that only in the 15 minutes after sunrise, there's a special light, only near infrared light, a very special infrared light, which is closest to the visible light. And of course, this is stronger midday, but after 15 minutes, also the UVB light and UVA light, or all the more damaging light, which the body likes to protect, that stops the positive effect. And this pure infrared light, near infrared light in the morning, that releases a hormone in the mitochondria. It's called melatonin. It's totally different from the sleeping hormone melatonin. It's the same chemical, but it's not in the blood, it's in the mitochondria. And that purifies the cell from damaged mitochondria. And it's, again, a hot topic in modern medicine. connected to anti-aging and to anti-cancer treatment. So it's one of the best medicines to go out during morning sunrise. And like this, I could name 20, 30, 40 such examples, and they're really, for me, you know, almost like a miracle. And everything that is in Ayurveda said becomes true. One last story is that I was reading in the scriptures of Ayurveda that there's some goddess in the night that washes the brain. Like, you know, it cleans your brain in the night. And again, I thought this is a kind of a religious feeling that some god helps you during the night. But 10 years ago, modern medicine finally discovered why the brain is the only organ without lymphatic system. There is no lymph in the brain. This is every other cell in the body is surrounded by lymph fluid collected into lymph vessels and takes all the cell waste of the cell. That is the responsibility of the lymph. Brain doesn't have this. But only now it has been discovered that during deep sleep, there's a little shrinking of the brain, minute, but enough that there's a gap between all the arteries and veins that are pervading the brain. And through that gap, because the brain is kind of swimming in the cerebral fluid, in the cerebrospinal fluid, and then when this gap is open, the brain is washed during the night with that fluid. So then I thought this makes sense, this story, that there is a washing during the night. And like this, many strange things that in the old scriptures are mentioned seem to come true one after the other. And now even there is something very strange in the Vedic literature which is not yet discovered. I have great appreciation, and I never would say this is a primitive understanding of some older age from some 1,000 years ago where civilization was less developed. It's basically the opposite. It's kind of, we can say Ayurveda is really cutting-edge modern medicine when we see how modern medicine appreciates this. Maybe I should stop here so that I don't take all the time, or you have questions and other presenters.
Before we move on to the next part of the program, let me introduce you to Dr. Isabel Vašmut, who came to us from the WHO headquarters from Geneva in Switzerland, who would also like to tell us her experience. And also I would like to welcome Professor Madan Tangavelu, who also represents Ayurveda here at a very high level. Let me also share my own experience when I was investigating Ayurvedic systems and when I was cleaning my nostrils with special liquid. It was very efficient. And it was during sunrise, and this is something which I must really recommend. But you should probably go to Kerala in India or to such places. And now I would like to invite... oh, I forgot to greet Bashvati. I apologize.
Yes.
I think I am already quite tired by our congress, so please apologize. Isabel, could I share together with others, share experience from TCIM branches, but also from our last meeting here in Prague? Thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much for your question, Tomasz. It's quite very interesting, the evolution, in fact, of TCM, specifically worldwide and in World Health Organization. Because just to tell you a little bit of history, you know, and specifically how such movement can scale and can be accepted, you know. You have, for me, two two elements, you know, for success, I will say. First, it is one side the change of the user, you know, in terms of healthcare services. And for example, before the COVID pandemic, it was a huge demand for, specifically in Western world, for traditional and complementary medicine, specifically for the use of homeopathy, you know, how you, in fact, maintain your good health, your well-being. So it was an increase of awareness about the population, you know. Donc it's very interesting because when, you know, I am sure you know the pyramid of Maslow about the needs of people, you know, when they are stuck, you know, they cannot feel their basic needs, you know, they cannot think about, you know, health properly, you know what I mean, because they have no access to food, they have no access to electricity, so it's really survival mode, you know. Donc when you will grow, you know, in these pyramids, your needs as an individual will change because you will have more space and time to reflect about subtle needs, like how I maintain, in fact, my potential, you know, my vitality. Donc that is very important to understand as well in the global scale, you know, because we cannot compare, of course, some countries still in this survival mode, you know, and their needs, and some needs, you know, have evolved. And of course, with the good condition of social determinants of health, specifically in Western part, the needs of people have changed, their preferences have changed, and they were able to realize, you know, health is very precious. It is my capital. I need to be healthy to perform better, you know, my life, to have a purpose in my life. So that it is essential, I think, at individual level. And that go to another level. It is a collective, you know, aspect of that. And it is what I have articulated to you about the wish to request other type of medicine, not just, you know, allopathic medicine. When you have an accident, you know, you go for an operation and so on. But it's how I use, you know, nutriments, the foods, but the complement as well to the food, like oligo elements, you know, how I have consciousness about the beauty of my environment, how I preserve, in fact, this environment. So we can see how the individual will go to what I will call onness, you know, the sense of unity with everything, you know, around of us, and the fact we are interdependent. We are interdependent with the condition we have around of us, the quality of the nature we have, but as well the quality we will have in terms of relationship. So the relationship, it is, I think, the big challenge we will face in the future of health, of well-being, because it is this aspect as well need to be nurturing. And we can see that clearly with this crisis of COVID, of the pandemic, because you have observed around of you how people finally they have feel so lonely, so isolated, and it was very important for them to come back to the essence, you know, of their needs. And the essence of their needs, it was how I can make relationship more meaningful, more authentic, you know, in my life. So that is go to as well traditional and complementary medicine, and as well about meditation, about, you know, this time you have for yourself to take care about yourself, you know, to create this balance, you know, between your lifestyle in general, you know, the work, your family. So it is really what we have observed as well at global level, you know. And we want to now embed, I will say, traditional and complementary medicine as well with other type of very important, movement, I will say, globally. One, it is about the importance of our relationship with nature, because nature is very important. As you have described, for example, when I am seeing a beautiful sunset or sunrise, or when I am in connection with the forest, for example, the importance of the forest, to walk, in the forest, to take time for myself. It's extraordinary, and it is a hope, for humanity, because when the needs of people will shift, their request for something more healthy, more beautiful, more meaningful will happen, in fact. So it is a maturity of this ecosystem, I will say, at individual level, because the request need from the individual to more collective level, and as well to global level. But it's very important, I think, to look these different aspects. What I have articulated in my presentation, the micro, meso, and macro level, together in simultaneous way, And I think it is a mistake when you are looking just one aspect of health. For example, if you don't feel well, you will say, oh, I have just a pain here, but it's not, the pain is just a consequence of something is unbalanced in your full body, Donc this holistic approach of life, I will say, and our interdependency and connection with everything, it's, I think, the next stage of consciousness as an individual to reach the demand, in fact, to the policies, to the legislation for something more healthy, more meaningful. It was important for me to share that with you, because everything is interconnected. We cannot separate things, and that, I think, it is the good news, because I think that will continue in the future for this type of needs and demand. But we need to support as well, of course, the country have not today the opportunity to reach their survival needs. If we don't take care about, as well, this population, we will fail for me, as humanity. Donc we need as well to create this solidarity mechanism, and I think the traditional and complementary medicine can really support that, specifically with the work of, to link that with the work of social workers. It's not to have social support in one side and health intervention in another side. The two go together again, and sometimes, from my experience, but it is your experience every day, when you live, you have not one day to cook, you have not one day to take care about your children, you have not one day to move, I don't know, in your work. You will do this type of things in simultaneous way, you know what I mean? It's normal. Alors why we separate things, when we go to our work, for example, and we are not able to connect, for example, different disciplines together. If we reflect like that, don't make sense, Donc we need to see in our daily life what we can do as well, by extension, in what we can give as well to the world, and just to share our experience without fear as well, that I think is very important. And in this way make the difference. I think each of us can make a big difference when we believe in us. Thank you.
Thank you for your perspective, which is very extended and can see the problem in its complexity. And now I would like to kindly ask some of my guests, and as there is only one woman, we would like to kindly ask her to share her experience. This is Dr. Bhashwati Bhattacharya from Cornell Medical College. Must definitely have a lot of practical experience with her patients and also experience from the realm of natural treatment, which is based on experience of ancient systems, thousands years old, which already demonstrated their efficiency very well. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Dobre din. And I apologize for the late arrival. I sleep like a baby. It's a blessing. But when apparently they tried to wake me, they thought I was gone. I was just dead. Now I have awoken. And my patients have taught me a lot about the practical value of healing. As you know, I practice modern medicine, but also I practice Ayurveda. And I am also certified in many things because certification is a vogue in USA. So I have certificates in homeopathy and aromatherapy and energy healing and osteopathy and about 6 or 8 to show that I'm qualified. But the actual qualification is first being able to connect with the patients and being able to talk with the patients. Because as you know, the word doctor comes from the verb from Greek language, docere, which means to teach. If I cannot teach my patient in a language which they can understand in a practical way, it's useless. All of my knowledge is useless. So, as I was listening to Dr. Reiner, it's wonderful that people in the lay world are now learning about the importance of early morning. I try to take the information about something called clock genes, which is the way our DNA open and close according to the clock. And some patients love this because it connects some logic for them to why they should wake up early and how to resolve what they are reading in the popular press about chronotypes, which say that some people it's fine that you wake up at 9 p.m. and work all night like the IT professionals and sleep during the day, all day, every day. And they argue with Ayurveda. And many of my patients have a very good question. They are certainly intelligent. So I teach them about the genes, the DNA, and how the functions of the body are coordinated. So I'll just give you one example. In many, many scientific studies, in mostly animals, like rats and mice, but also in some humans, they have taken the tissue of the liver and found that the liver works the most. The DNA opens up to do the functions of the liver the most between 2 and 4 p.m. That's for everyone, most everyone. And so if you eat your biggest meal, we say when the fire is high in the sky, the fire is high in the belly. The fire in the sky, the sun is highest from 11 or 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning until about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So if you have your main meal in the middle of the day, which Ayurveda advises, then you can have the liver detoxifying the most. So when I explain it like this to the patients, they say, oh, so why am I skipping my lunch? Oh, why am I eating my biggest meal at dinner? And I tell them, the laboratory, which is the most important, is your own, for you. The concept of Satmya, which is what you are used to, in Ayurveda applies here. So I say, you try it. And they try shifting their main meal to lunch, and they find great changes. They start losing weight, their skin clears up, they are less fatigued. And for that patient, just explaining it with this combination of both ancient science and some molecular science is useful, and it's practical. For some patients, they absolutely understand energy work. They understand this feeling, this sixth sense they get. And they've never heard about bioelectricity. I think everyone in this room, you know bioelectricity, and the fact that we have rhythms in our body, but they don't understand how to speak with their scientific friends or their engineering. Engineers are big problems because they learn that everything is physical. They don't like the spiritual world, so you have to kind of uneducate them and then re-educate them and teach them. And Thomas has shared his journey of being an engineer and being very critical of this until he experienced. So for these people, I tell them, look at the patient in the hospital when they are on the EKG and all the tubes and things are going through their body. If they have a cardiac event, the doctor will come with a defibrillator and put the defibrillator on the body with both hands and tell everyone, clear. Don't touch the patient when we are defibrillating, right? Every nurse knows this, every health professional working in a hospital knows this. Why do they say that? Because the energy, the electricity from that patient can go through the patient into another person. So we should be disconnected from them when we give them high voltage electricity to restart their heart electric function. So we know that we are exchanging electricity among each other. And we know that there are people who can stand in one place and extend that electricity because they create an electric field through them. I think this is familiar to you. So for the patients who have never heard this, to speak in very practical ways, this very much works. I happen to really love Ayurveda because everything that is being discovered in modern medicine that I discuss with any colleagues of modern science or modern engineering, modern physics, it all is correlated in Ayurveda, and I like that. But it's not to say that other systems don't work, and it's not to say that patients don't come from different perspectives. So for me, I love answering questions of patients about, well, I had a book, but someone actually took it from the desk. It's called Everyday Ayurveda. It was sitting here during the conference. And it takes each prescription that's given for making your daily rhythm in line with the sun and the moon. And it talks about practical ways for you, not a technical person, to make it into your life in a doable way, in a realistic way. Whether it's waking up early, or whether it's how to have sex, or whether it's when to sleep, or whether it's what to wear of clothing, or whether it's whether you can have alcohol or coffee and how to have it, although many people should never have it because they're of a frequency where it doesn't do any good for them. It tells you how to pee and poop. I want to see how they translate that one in Czech. And sorry, Marketa. And it teaches about every practical thing of your day. And the book comes from patients who ask me real questions because they had not just doubts, they are skeptics. And when I see how the patients learn and they transform, this is my greatest teaching. So this is an overview. I think this is what Thomas was asking for. Yes? Yes, and if there are any detailed questions that anyone is really wanting to ask on a practical level, I think that I'm happy to try to answer it. And if, Thomas, if you have anything specific you would like me to say, please.
Já bych poprosil zde přítomné.
I would like to ask the people who our audience who could also get involved because Ayurveda it hasn't been very developed in the Czech Republic. Is there anything viewers you would be interested in having explained?
Děkuji, já bych měl dotaz na pana doktora první
I would like to ask Dr. Rainer Picha, who was talking about sunshine and radiation, because when we were at the sea, we could see the Tamils and also sunset. So I would also like to know how sunset affects humans. So probably there is a reason why these Indian people come to the beach to see sunset.
Okay. Yes, understood your question. Thank you. Very good. I got this question several times. Always when I speak about this topic, they say, you speak about sunrise. Why don't you talk about sunset? It's also beautiful, and some people prefer seeing the sunset. I think the same things are going on in the brain, but in Ayurveda, everything is very specific, and sunrise means gaining of energy, gaining of light. Like enlightenment is one word that is positive in tone, and more energy and more positivity. And sunset has the quality of diminishing energy and going to sleep. And it's, you know, when you're depressed, you would never recommend to see sunset. You will get more depressed. But if a person is very, you know, pitta type, we say in Ayurveda, where the heat is stronger and you know, the emotions are very high and you're angry, then it's very good to advise to see the sunset because it cools you down. It's cooling and it's going the heat down and emotion going down. So for a specific situation, it's advisable to see the sun set. But for the most people, they want to have creativity, energy, they want to achieve during the day, and then this is the most precious time. Another reason why the morning time is a little bit more auspicious is because during the night, the air and everything cleans up. There's more dust and the dough, and it's even the few hours before sunrise are the purest in the entire 24 hours written. So going out for sunrise, you get also the purity of the air. You can smell. If you are used to go out in the early, you would have a different feeling of nature, more pure. You see, you have all these beautiful smells from the flowers and nature. Wherein at night you have the rest that has to go down from during the day, from all the exhaustion of traffic and activity. So there are some differences, and that's why we prefer the sunrise as the most auspicious. But in some specific situations, it's better to recommend sunset, but mostly sunrise.
I would like to add to that, but I would like to ask, would you like to have the explanation from a physics point of view or from a practical or emotional, energetic? Which is the one you prefer? All of them. Okay, quickly. One thing which Dr. Picha did not yet mention is that if you look at the rainbow of colors that the sun gives, there is, as you all know, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. So on this side of violet is ultraviolet. And if you come back yellow, orange, red, on this side of red is infrared. As we know, ultraviolet is very damaging for skin, but infrared is very, very healing. And people will actually spend a lot of money to go to the sports doctor to get infrared treatments like this with a probe on their joints. They will also use it on their skin because it's very good as a dermatologic. What's happening with infrared is you go down 3-4 layers below the cells, and there is a healing that takes place with infrared energy. So you got that, pure infrared. the time of the day when the Earth is traveling on its axis, I should say rotating on its axis, and the sun is there and hitting it at an angle when it's rotating, when it's either leaving or coming in toward the sun, is the sunrise and the sunset, right? So you get that oblique angle, and you get the most infrared during that time. And it's considered a time that you can get healing energy. So when you do the Surya Namaskar in the direction of the east, rising sun, you're exposing not just your face and your eyes, which have arrows, or you can say nerves that go to the pineal gland that tell it what time daylight is starting. But also they have found it on the skin and on the neck. So we do our stretches in our Surya Namaskar, and when we come down, we're exposing our entire face and neck to that infrared. And not only healing, which is the infrared itself rays, but also signaling to the brain that this is daylight. So that's one reason why sunrise and sunset are very useful for us. So at sunset, we face the west, obviously, because we are seeing the sunset. But as Dr. Raina said, it is the creativity in the morning that is good. Now, if you understand some Ayurveda, which some of you may know, in the morning you're going from Vata time, 3 to 7 a.m., into the Kapha, which is the more active time of day. It's a stabilizing mental time of day. In the evening, when you're going from 3 to 7 p.m., you have your sunset. Depending winter or summer, you're going into the Kapha time of evening, which is more of a stabilizing to settle you down towards sleep. So it's more of a physical body settling down. And so in the sunset, we take our last exercise, we get our infrared, and we take that exercise because actually you should eat before sunset, according to Ayurveda, because after dusk, the animals and the bugs and things come out. There's a very interesting study that Dr. Madan and I discussed about spores and how there are many spores and fungi that actually increase logarithmically in their production just after sunset. So you should not leave any glasses open because the spores love water and they will multiply. That is why food goes bad if you leave it out overnight. So they say that you should eat before sunset. There are a lot of little details like this that I've collected, and I can tell you about from different perspectives of different sciences. Ayurveda has made it practical and said, just go out for an evening walk at sunset, so that if you don't want to understand all the practical, all the technical parts, you can understand it in a practical way. Is that useful for you? Yeah? Thank you, Dr. Raina.
Thank you. This is definitely useful for everyone. And I must add that I have a dilemma. Other guests who are here with me are all very similar. And I must make a decision who should continue speaking, because there is Amashit Espamra and Madan Tangavelu. Both of them are Ayurveda specialists, and all of them are involved in policy-making process in healthcare. And therefore, I think that Amashit's experience should maybe be heard in our conclusion, and therefore I will ask Professor Madan Tangavelu to share his experience now.
Thomas, thank you very much. Today was a very special day. Many of you were, some of you were in Parliament today with us in the Czech Parliament, and we met with the two members of your Parliament. We met with the former Minister of Justice who was there, and we exchanged a lot of information. And what was very clear today is that there is now a parliamentary working group for traditional complementary integrated medicine here in the Czech Republic. So this is a big victory for all of us. Out of this event and things that happened before, we now have some presence in the parliament. And I want to particularly highlight the synergy in the two members of the parliament. One is Margita, who was here with us, and she has a passion for agriculture, food, which is a part of health. And the second person who was here with us and who's very passionate is Professor Julius Pichak. He is from the medicine side. He's a doctor. And he's a specialist in the place where food goes, in the gastrointestinal tract. And it's a very interesting synergy that is coming out of this interaction. That somebody who is passionate about food and somebody who's passionate and an expert in where the food goes and all the diseases there. And as Reina says, once upon a time, it was always said a lot of disease begins with your intestinal tract. And looks like we have circled this whole thing. In a very special way, we have completed a circle from environment, which Isabel was talking about, food, we have MEP, the place where the food goes, and where disease begins. And that circle is completed. So it's a very special day for all of us here in the Czech Republic. So that's number one. The fine details of the next step, we have to make some details now, and those details are going to be very important to bring the skeptics closer to us. Thomas has been working for many years, a big signature collection that he managed, 45,000 signatures from across the country. We were in the parliament many years ago, and some of these things take time, but we are there now. The Senate didn't like it very much, but now it is likely we will find progress through the parliament. So that is a big victory. But the challenge is with us still. We need to give our parliamentarians some more detail of what we want to do. Some of the areas that we want to give them must be easy for all the parliamentarians to agree with. And food is easy. And it must not only become valuable for the Czech Parliament, but it must also be valuable for the European Parliament. And food is very important in the European Parliament. So something is happening in the correct, there are synergies that are growing in the discussions. In terms of how we can turn this into a win situation for everybody involved. The European Parliament will be thinking what happens outside Europe. So they have to make decisions. But once again, food is important for everybody. And problems with the GI tract is important for everybody. And maybe we must all collectively put our energy into making some very positive vibrations on where the next steps must be. And I feel what we have seen today about food and health and where we can take this narrative is, to me, it is still, I'm still digesting, but it is getting clearer in my mind how I would take this forward. So I have prepared notes today while I was listening to the speakers in Parliament. And there are many points, and I want to list one or two points here. Food I've talked about, and Professor Spisak and ICAM, your big institute here, which is doing a lot of work. Number two, I want to talk a little bit about cardiovascular disease. Professor Pitcher here, Rainer, he's a specialist, he has mentioned very briefly. It is the #1 killer in the world, in every country. The first disease that kills people is diseases of the heart. And the #2 disease is cancer. And there is a lot of evidence that both these problems have a beginning with food or with something in your GI tract. So that is a victory in another way. How to make it more attractive for our people and also for the parliamentarians, and how to make it attractive for Europe and for the rest of the world. My early thoughts, which I will put down, as I said, on paper, is that we must think about a global incubator for future health. And it is a global incubator, a global consortium for future health. And I'm not making this lightly. I'm making this comment based on the strength of the Czech Republic. In the Czech Republic, you have something called the Czech Academy of Sciences. And the Czech Academy of Sciences is an old academy. We have seen the history of the strength of this academy from beginnings here in the alchemy area. We have seen the beginnings, very old, 500-600 years of history or more. The academy, the Czech Academy of Sciences today has 54 institutes across this small country of only 10 million people. It employs about 8,000 people in this country. Very high-level scientists working on very exciting areas. And it is a pride, it's a pride possession of this country. I hope Thomas and our members of the parliament will take this dialogue to them. And out of the 54 institutes that is employing more than 8,000 people, there are many who feel this way. They are all eating every day. They will all have some problems related to GI tract or heart diseases. We must make a friendly dialogue with them. But this dialogue is not only for the Czech Republic, but it is for the whole world. And collectively, we have to make a creative vision to give to our parliamentarians so that they can take it to their colleagues, parliamentarians, and do something. We have a similar challenge in the United Kingdom, which Amarjitji, myself, we are fighting with this. But every country has a cultural history that either gives it an advantage or a disadvantage. And it is for the people of that culture, of that society, to understand what are your advantages and disadvantages. The 54 institutes of the Czech Academy of Sciences are divided into 3 broad themes. And they are mathematics, physics, and computer science, important for the world. Number 2, life and chemical sciences, important for the world. Number 4, humanities and social sciences, important for the world. We have to find some friends in these places. And that is to be found through the help of people like yourself. You may have friends, relatives who work in these places. Bring them into our discussion. Tell them about our exciting event here. Tell them about the meeting in the parliament. And let the dialogue go outside. Get more people talking about it. Now, I mentioned about the Global Consortium of Future Health, which should be based somewhere in Europe. It can be in Prague. Why not? It's a beautiful city. It's a city with a big history. It is in a country that has huge scientific, historical interests. So, Andrea here is working on some aspects of immune system of a mother. Why not? Take it to the world. And to take it to the world, we have to find partners. Amarjitji today, he mentioned, and in his presentation, he mentioned about the leadership that India gave for the 20 large, the G20 countries. India was the president for 1 year. And in that forum, all of these themes that we are talking on was presented. From India, the presidency goes to Brazil. Rainer and his team have very big involvement in Brazil. And hopefully next year it will go somewhere there, to Brazil. And from Brazil it goes to South Africa. We have a colleague from South Africa who presented. So this discussion and the dialogues that are developing here, we can hold it for at least 2 years or more and bring it up again and again. And Professor Spišek, he mentioned very specifically, give me practical win-win-win solutions. And those win-win-win solutions will fall in this area. We cannot be specific because there are so many political layers, but we can give them a direction. And together with all of us here in the Presidium, we will prepare a document which will contain, just as a draft document, just to give an idea, and let them put the political dimensions to these things and take it to the next and future levels. In cardiovascular area, Rainer has a lot of experience in Austria. Naveen Gupta, who was here today morning, we were discussing some things on how people are getting excellent responses using traditional systems. Why don't we discuss this? In terms of child health and mother health, we have people like Andrea who are doing amazing things. In terms of cancer, this is part of the academy, your academy. There are many things going on in India. Why don't we start a dialogue? So this is where my mind is running in terms of policy, in terms of politics, in terms of people, and in terms of the planet, and where we can create a movement, and where I hope all of you will agree that food is important, family is important, children are important, mothers are important, diseases, of course. So let us look at all of this in a very holistic way, and let us see how we can make a dialogue here. I can see our health representative of the city of Prague here with us. We want to take this dialogue into the city and to make the city proud of, make this, what we have discussed here, a part of the city, so that the city can then take the dialogue forward. And so these are just the natural things that are coming to my mind. We will take this message back to UK. I will take this message back to many other countries. I interact a lot with Canada. There are similar dialogues going on in Canada. I will take this message to other parts of the world, into South Africa, into West Africa, where there are dialogues are going on, into the WHO through Isabel. We are discussing many of these. The reason why we were late today is because we were discussing some of these things, putting the detail into this. So there are many discussions, but we want every individual, as Dr. Baswatiji says, every individual to start to think about this and to become aware of these issues and guide us, because it is difficult for one mind to put all this and to work with this. We want as many minds as possible to come and join us in this effort. So that is my work. I have all this homework to finish. I have to turn my writing into a draft note. I think I have covered most of the points. Thomas, there was one point that came up, which is skills development, and training. And we had a prize-winning midwife who was here with us. I don't know if she's here with us today. She's gone. So it is a skill that we don't appreciate. When each of us was born, there was a midwife there. And even today, this is the oldest profession. But even today, there is no recognition for it. Why not? In the Indian systems I was talking with Andrea. over the 9 months of pregnancy, for every month of pregnancy, there are specific rules and regulations about what food to eat, what not to eat, what are the things you should do, what are the things you should not do. Why not? Why can't we find out about this and use it here and experiment with it, discuss it, and bring the midwives to have a dialogue? Yes, the language problem is I'm talking in English, you're nodding your heads, which means you're understanding what I'm saying. So the language issue is not a problem. And we are here to open up that whole space. There are thousands of physicians, Vaidyas, with so many years of experience in India. Let us find a way to dialogue with them. And let us bring that knowledge here, discuss the knowledge in private before we take it to the parliament. We have a window into the parliament. There are friends there. There will be many more friends. So this is my message. Skill development, wherever we can find, we will bring them in, we will discuss, we will refine, make it specific for the Czech Republic, make it specific for our friends next door. Rainer and their colleagues are now running a master's level program in Ayurveda in your neighboring country. So people who have a first degree in some area, maybe a doctor, can go and learn, do a master's degree next door, not at the alma mater university in Slovenia. It's very easy. You don't need to go to India. You can do the studies here. So there are many, many opportunities that are coming up. And I am excited in how we will see a stronger dialogue happening. The ambassador was here. We will convey this to the ambassador, and we will strengthen that link. So, Thomas, these are my thoughts. Thank you for having us in the parliament today. Thank you for making us come to the parliament today. Thank you.
Děkuji.
Thank you.
Děkuji za velmi krásná.
Thank you for beautiful words and thoughts. I think that we all understand why Professor Madan Tangaveli comes from Cambridge. It's because bridge is most in Czech. And I think we could create a Prague bridge here, which is also my dream as director of the Institute for TCIM, which held the Congress we have been talking about. And let me say a few words how this thought originated. In the beginning, you are standing completely alone. You are not being accepted by the scientific world, and neither does the society. And then a miracle comes, and it comes from the bottom, and that's another circle. That's you who signed the petition, and you who enabled that it was heard in the parliament. This enabled the situation that I was contacted by the members of parliament, and since then a cooperation has been developing and has been bringing great hopes. Because everything which is happening here does not serve to one particular person, but this is all being done for you, because you will all benefit from what has been lectured here and everything which has been presented at the international level. This is thanks to you that we are able to be seated in this beautiful community of women and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, who represent very strong thoughts and also very strong institutions. And this is a small miracle. We all believe that the further progress will be possible, and what has been implied, future contacts on a parliamentarian level, were demonstrated today in a very nice way. And I'm very grateful to my friends, because without them, this initiative wouldn't have been creative. Thanks to altruistic efforts, they have been helping in all their countries and also here in the Czech Republic. And we will pay back this debt so that balance is established. So therefore, I would like to invite Amajit Espamra in our discussion, because I'm sure that he will introduce really fundamental thoughts related to his work in APPG on Indian sciences, but also his work in a practical area, because he helps all those in a need and humbly goes on his personal pathway. And I really appreciate him when I see him on his journey.
Namaste. Dobar dan. Thank you, Thomas. Last 3-4 days have been quite hectic. And as my very honorable friend Madan has already spoken to you about what has happened today, has actually been a milestone in the history of the Czech Republic when it comes to traditional and integrated medicine. So, looking at some of the situations which Thomas would like me to sort of outline, is that, many years ago, the sort of total population of United Kingdom, that's where I've come from now, is about 70 million people, of which about 5% are the Indian population. So there was a very young lady who was teaching very young toddlers some stretching exercise yoga classes. And so she was doing this, in one of the side rooms in a church in England. And then the vicar got to find out that, yoga is Hindu. So you can't teach a Hindu practice in a Christian church. And she said, I'm not teaching Hinduism. These are just little, 6, 7, 8-year-old little toddlers, and I'm just teaching them some stretching classes. So they kicked her out, and there was a very big media coverage in the UK about this unfortunate situation. And somehow they got hold of me, and then they wanted me to speak. There is a Christian radio station in the UK. So they wanted me to speak there and to try and clarify this situation. And so they had the vicar at the radio station together with the regional administrative person, and then obviously me there. And so they put the whole case, and then they asked me, what do you think? Is this right? So I said, back in 1960s and 1970s and even early 80s, English people every Friday evening would eat fish and chips. That was a staple diet. Every Friday evening, they would eat fish and chips. But when many Indian people, like my family, emigrated to the United Kingdom, every Friday night, the food became curry and rice. So then I was speaking to, the the panel of discussion we were having on the radio station. So then I was saying that, if we're eating curry and rice, because it's a Hindu food, are we going to now start giving up eating? Because curry is from a Hindu tradition. Are you following me? Are you following me? Yeah? So these are very unfortunate situations, that develop as we, crisscross, various different countries where we live and where we reside. And so we have now a situation where when you look at the pharmaceutical industry, their profits are soaring up to something like $55 billion a year. So if I come to Markita because she's my doctor, allopathic doctor, and she's supposed to heal me, right? But if she's healing me and giving me prescription, why are her profits so high? That means something is not right. If she's healing me, I don't need her medication. Yeah. So the difference, between allopathy, what we have here in Czech Republic and the United Kingdom and all over the world, versus what we are trying to speak about at this Congress here, the traditional medical systems. The difference is that we look at the root cause of the problem and not address the symptom. Yeah. And I want to I don't want to take too much of your time to let you know how difficult the journey has been over the last 10 years. Working, with some in great difficulties, with politics. But in a way, I've sort of enjoyed the journey, and I'm still enjoying the journey because, the politicians back there in the United Kingdom, and we've also done some work in the EU Parliament in Brussels, are also just normal people, but they're scared. They're very scared people, very afraid people. And we just have to try and speak, in the language they can understand us, so that it sort of somehow makes sense to them. And one of those senses that we've tried to do over the last few years is work upon bridging the gap between our understanding between each other, and that is what I would like to speak to you about now. So this is called APRIL. The acronym is APRIL, which is Ayurveda for Promoting Recovery in Long COVID, APRIL. So APRIL is a randomized placebo-controlled trial of traditional Indian herbal medicine for treating long COVID. So that, we went through extremely bad patch with COVID. Millions and millions of people died all over the world. And some of those who fortunately survived went on to develop long COVID. And in UK alone, we have this number touching about 5 million people. And this is a very debilitating problem when it comes to mental health issues. And there is no cure. So what we have been doing is to try and bring the Ministry of Ayush, which is the Ministry of Traditional and Integrative Medicine in India, and joining up with the UK health authorities, and to lead a 2,000 patient research study on how a particular Ayurveda herb can address this symptom, address this issue. And this is very good news because it has finally sunk in that paracetamol will not cure this situation, will not cure this problem. any other medications they have at their disposal are not able to cure this problem. So finally, all these years, governments and very large consortiums have been talking about the work we do, which is alternative. I hope that you will agree with me that our medicine is not alternative. Our medicine is natural medicine. Yeah? And so finally they have realized that they now need to seek across the border to find a solution to these problems, and Ayurveda has come into the scheme of things. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the first trial of an Ayurveda product regulated as medicine. So this trial is regulated as a medicine, not as a supplement. In the UK, officially opened sort of a few months ago. And it took us 1 year to get all the clarifications, all the certifications from the British police, the authority that polices medicines, the MHRA. So conforming to all their standards and issues, we finally managed to get there, and the study has now started. And it will encapsulate 2,000 people recommended by their doctors to whom this particular drug, this herb will be given. And the study is conducted by one of the leading institutions, one of the leading universities in the United Kingdom, known as the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. And these people are all British scientists. They have no knowledge about Ayurveda, which I think is really fantastic. So these people will be conducting this study over the course of next year. And so the rationale, is that, as you know, because of this very unfortunate situation, we were plugged into the system all over the world, to have a particular vaccine. And there are many people, I think, in this wonderful country who didn't want to have a vaccine. And there are many people in the United Kingdom who didn't want to have a vaccine. So the government, where we are, the parliamentarians who we vote for, they could not give us an option. We either have to have a vaccine or we somehow, sort of hid behind the curtains and just took a chance. So finally, they're getting around their heads to this and trying to find a solution. And so there are concerns around a long-term sequel, often referred to as long COVID, with symptoms including respiratory problems, chronic cough, shortness of breath, chest tightness, poor mental health, and extreme fatigue, and muscle weakness. So this all comes under the long COVID symptoms. And long COVID is understood to be a multi-system disease similar to some other post-viral syndromes, although it is still poorly misunderstood. And the herb that is used for this is a very old, ancient herb that has been used in India for thousands and thousands of years. And so the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Ayush in India, who are working on this project, have suggested that we work with something that's a herb that's called ashwagandha. And the ashwagandha is under trial at this moment. And so this is a randomized placebo-controlled trial, which will, as I said, last for like best part of 1 year. So the aim of this study is to determine whether ashwagandha can improve functional status, quality, and life of symptoms of adults in the UK suffering from the long COVID. So primarily, the objective is to determine the effectiveness of this particular ashwagandha, where the patients will be given a course for 3 months for improving functional status measured by the post-COVID-19 functional status scale among people experiencing ongoing symptoms of COVID-19. Secondly, to determine the effectiveness of ashwagandha for this 3-month course for improving quality of life, reported fatigue, breathlessness, pain, sleep quality, mental health, work status, and other symptoms. So the participants, as I said, are patients who have been recommended by their doctors, who will be obviously recommended by their doctors, and they will be recruiting up to 2,500 patients for this study. And the study is within the guidelines of the National Health Service in the UK. And it will be a study that will be looking at adults of 18 years and over. So the team of this particular study, as I said, is led by the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. They have a very learned, very experienced chief investigator, Professor Sanjay Kinra, and the team is supported by the Ministry of Ayush with their technical engineers from India, and it's also supported by the World Health Organization, and of course, the whole scheme came into being through our efforts at the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Indian Traditional Sciences. And so therefore, ladies and gentlemen, over the last 10 years since we've been there, with the group and having meetings, we have at least 3 to 4 meetings every year informing the parliamentary community, the policymaking community, and other stakeholders on the benefits of traditional integrated medical systems, and to see how effectively they can create a model, they can create a structure by where hopefully in our lifetime we can see the work that we're doing is actually legitimized. I would certainly like to see that. And the pressure is on, and so we have a very impeccable resolution in various NHS hospitals in England where yoga actually is being recommended by doctors, to try out yoga. And Stefan earlier was talking about this, social prescription. So there are many, many areas that the UK authorities are looking to go for medical systems other than the pharmaceutical industry. And so yoga is gaining very much momentum. We have an Ayurveda study going on in the university hospital in the UK. And so things, I think, can only get better. Things will get better. Like Thomas just said, the journey starts with one step. And we've been sort of conducting this work over the last sort of 10 years. And we are now beginning to get somewhere, and I'm very pleased that Thomas invited, the team over, including myself from the UK to help set up a similar group here in the Czech Republic. And, normally we speak about, just one more minute, we normally sort of speak about, ladies and gentlemen, there are 3 poisons, that we eat every day. Yeah? 3 poisons. Poison number 1 is what the farming community is giving you, the food that is being manufactured, the food that is manufactured in our farms. So all the chemicals that go into bringing that food together. Then that goes into their friends who are the processing industry. So they put more poison in there. They put more chemicals in there, which the body doesn't understand how it's going to be digested. And finally, the poison number 3 comes to, when you visit when the body can't take the pressure anymore, the body can't function anymore. So, you have to have some medication. So I'm not altogether saying that allopathic medicine is poison. Please don't misunderstand me. But we need to have our choice of freedom. And it's our body, it's our mind, it's our soul. And please look at this and seriously consider how we want to get out of this trap. Because all those people who are giving us poison are actually making money from us. They're giving us artificial stuff. And they're killing us in the process and making money. So we need to stand up, we need to fight for our rights. And the very people who you are putting into the parliament in the Czech Republic, when you have your next year's election, please make sure that you vote for the party who is supporting traditional medicine, complementary medicine, integrative medicine. Thank you so much.
And now there is space for a discussion. So let's open up this discussion, and I would like to invite our audience to feel free to ask questions.
Dobrý den. Během celé té
Good evening. During the whole discussion,
postupně v mysli
my mind has started forming questions, or probably a kind request. We have been feeling that we are approaching a breakthrough change when our healthcare will no longer be economically sustainable. And more situations are somehow adding to this problem. People cannot get healthy food anymore, and you mentioned how important this is. And we find ourselves in something and some sort of pessimism, and we find ourselves in a dark tunnel. And I'm a technician who has been working with light, with chandeliers. And it has crossed my mind that you are also such lamps, because you try to shine more and more. When we are making these new lamps, we put LED chips into them, and when there is too little light, we just add some more LED chips to such a lamp. And I started realizing that all these lamps should be put on that lamp, including EBM, which is also needful. And if we combine all of them into one single lamp, we will be able to see that light at the end of the tunnel, and we will be able to see that rising sun, which you have been talking about. And this is something I would like to ask on behalf of the whole general public. Let's unite and let's form such a large, intensive light. Thank you.
Prosím, může někdo z vás reagovat?
Would anybody like to respond to this comment?
You wanted to say something?
Dziękuję. I think that was a lovely comment, and it really resonated so deeply with my experience. I live in London in the UK, and I'm surrounded by almost 10 million people, and I'm going through the most lonely years of my life, especially since post-COVID situation has arisen. And so that's a personal share. I read your share also as a personal share. Thank you very much. I want to acknowledge you for that. So I get very much involved in body-mind approaches. Okay, I know that anything that happens in the mind is reflected in how my physiology is functioning. If I have a lot of energy, if I feel depressed or down, my energy goes down. I just can't be bothered to do anything, okay? And if I have this long enough, or I have anxiety, it shows up physically, okay, eventually. And sickness can evolve, physical illness can come from that. So I think the mental health aspect that you point at is that you experience, if I hear you right, because of the circumstances, the difficult circumstances we're living in, can bring these physical symptoms. And the way I'm dealing with this is that I'm getting more and more active in environments. I select much more consciously people who are that light, who carry that light, and who trust, who have faith in that light, that light is shining in everyone, okay? So I join communities. I surround myself with people, with environments where that light is then, inspired, so to speak. I'm reconnected to it. So one place where I do this, so I'm a healthcare professional, working with complementary integrated therapies, and I work with yoga, and I'm part of the movement that integrates yoga into the National Healthcare Service, as Amarjit was pointing at in the UK. And I work with music and the arts also. I was talking about music as a therapy and also a social bonding possibility, okay, beyond language, through the feelings that music can evoke to bring people together into a state of union or oneness. And I think the inspiration from the outside is really important, but I've also experienced that I have to look for the light within. And I also can hear that from you. When you work with your hands, with the work that you do, you connect with the light inside of you. Okay, so that is a self-help procedure, which is great. I feel challenged that we need to develop self-knowledge. Where is the light within? Okay? I cannot expect the light to shine from the government or the current structures of society. I agree there's a lot of, I could get depressed over the focus of society right now, the values, the virtues that are there, which are all focused on materialism, on more consumerism, which leads to more destruction of the planet. It's like, with post-COVID, we are back to the old normal, destroying the planet, flying around, buying cars. It's about consumerism again. And people seem to have forgotten that we are all part of nature. We are all interdependent. And the learning curve now is that I learned for my own life, and everybody I meet to inspire, my message to people is, look within yourself. What is it that inspires you from within? Okay, because that is where the light is. And then to express that light through creative endeavor, through, we speak a lot about art as therapy, art as a transformational agent, but it could be what you do. Okay, it's a creative work because it connects us to the light. And I think the learning curve then it's not so much that we just change the culture of, okay, can I go to a medical doctor and have a variety of medical treatments? It's a cultural change that we need. And the culture is the community. And the community consists of people like me, people like you, and people like all of you here. So I've never spoken in the Czech Republic before, but because I have come here to share of what inspires me, I feel really connected to all of you. And this is really great, you know. I know the people up here on the board, but I don't know the people, I don't know you. And yet, I could instantly speak with you and find that level of oneness and union, and I feel connected in my humanity with your humanity. And this is, I think, the way out that we need to take. So where are the glimpses of hope within ourselves, our own experience? And what are the practices that I can use in order to lay open those glimpses of light and then share them with the people around me? And in that moment, I discover my humanity and I share my humanity, and life touches and moves me again in the way how it should. And then politics, for me personally, becomes so much irrelevant, and politicians and their agendas, it doesn't touch me as much as it did before, because I have connected to that inner light. And I find ways to communicate it through conversation, just this sharing in conversation, hugely inspiring. And only because I listened to you, I'm sorry I was late, I had to rest a little bit, it was a long conference. Just to listen to you is like I take something home back to London with me that really is going to build me up, right? So it's not about healthcare professional and then the people who don't know about health. It's about being human, fully human, to connect to the inspiration. I think this is where a lot of the healing will come from, and then it will ripple out from each person. And this is, we're going to recognize each other walking the street. That happens to me. I walk in the street in Prague. I don't speak one word of Czech. But I recognize it in people who have the spark and who don't have the spark. And I'm guided by the people who have the spark. And that brings me joy and peace and makes me feel at home anywhere on the planet. And this is huge. This is beautiful. So I hope this contributes to your seeking, and please don't be pulled down by the reactions of your own mind in the pessimism. Okay, the mind is just optimist. It's optimist and pessimist. It's always light and dark, and always decide to go for the light because it's still out there.
I just want to reflect on my very learned colleague, Dr. Reina, and Dr. Madan. You know, both of them were talking about globalization and how we need to keep this momentum going. And this is the main architect of our design, to how to keep this movement alive, because we are very few, they are again versus the rest. They have everything sorted out. They don't need us. They don't need our system. We are part of this little resistance. And the great thing is that it's taken a little while, but I'm very happy, and I hope that you will congratulate Thomas for bringing the best of the resistance to you this weekend here. Thank you.
Mám pro vás ještě jeden kruh.
I have one more circle for you. If you look at this circle, you will find out that none of its particles is the beginning and none of them is the end. At the same time, we will find out that each of these particles belongs to each other. This is something which we can learn from, that each person who works brings a benefit to the other realms, to the other areas, no matter whether it is a person who is a scientist, a medical doctor, or a dustman, because they are all equal in their humanity. And the way how this circle might be elevated to higher levels. And there is no other way how to conduct this is through love. The ability to accept others, understand others, accept everything which comes, be it good news or bad gossip, which sometimes appear, or whatever else, because this all belongs to that circle. You will never find anything else but this circle, because nothing else is available to us, although there are thousands of them. So therefore we need to get orientated in humanity. So let me conclude with wishing all the present viewers to understand everything which has been heard as part of a circle which cannot ever be divided. I would like to thank everybody for their beautiful presentation, and I strongly believe that this is not our last occasion through which we managed to meet each other. Thank you for your attention. If you noticed that those ending parts of our circle still continue further. Thank you.